From 27 BC, the Roman Empire was the pinnacle of all civilizations until suddenly, it wasn't anymore. To understand why the Roman Empire fell, we need to go back to its foundations. Legend has it that Rome was founded in 753 BC by twin brothers Romulus and Remus, sons of Mars, who were raised by a she-wolf. They overthrew the wicked king and established the Kingdom of Rome, but also Romulus killed Remus. Damn. And also not 100% true, but what a fun story. In reality, Rome was a monarchy before its citizens overthrew the king, instigated a republic system, and then sat down to enjoy hot dogs and watch NASCAR. Oh, right, wrong revolution. Rome's republic continued until 27 BC, when Augustus became sole dictator and reorganized it into an empire, kind of like Palpatine from Star Wars. He was the first Roman emperor. After him, emperors came and went, and came and went, and got murdered and exiled and murdered and murdered and exiled and murdered. You get the gist. Over the following 150 years or so, the borders rapidly expanded, and so did the tax income from its new citizens. At its peak, around 150 AD, Rome's borders extended from Britannia across most of continental Europe, around the Mediterranean, and across northern Africa. But then, well, things started to go a little bit bad. Well, really bad. The sheer size of the empire started to get away from its politicians. As the Romans began encountering serious enemies like the Vandals and the Huns, civilians and refugees were caught up in the middle. As the fight continued, Rome started to run out of money. They tried to further dilute the silver in their currency, something they'd been doing an awfully long time, but that didn't really work. Around 50 AD, a silver coin was almost 100% silver. This dropped off a cliff, and by 250 AD, the top silver coins had a maximum silver capacity of 30%. The civilians lost trust, as you would, in the currency. Eventually, Rome had to abandon silver coins completely, leading to widespread inflation, starvation, and mistrust. Ancient Rome was also facing some sustainability issues. So many mouths to feed and so much wood needed for shipbuilding, deforestation and nutrient-stripped topsoil led to overgrazing and damaging farming techniques. That meant that the crop yield dropped off, and that meant social unrest. And that meant more problems for Rome. So when the plagues, droughts, global cooling, and extreme weather came in the 300s and 400s, the Roman Empire really started to run out of food, and with it, it completely lost grip on its population. Problems like these started to pile up, eventually leading to the empire splitting into two separate states in 395 AD. Rome remained the capital of the Western Empire, and Constantinople, modern-day Istanbul, became the new capital of the Eastern Empire. The Roman Empire was running out of money to support its endless warfare. One by one, the furthest provinces broke free from the Iron Fist. Starting with Britannia around 410 AD. Spain and northern Africa kicked Rome out around 430 AD, and the Huns pushed into Gaul and Italy around 450. The dominoes were a-falling. In the year 476, it was all over. Romulus Augustus, the last Roman emperor, was violently disposed by Germanic warlord Odoacer, who took control of the army and burned the Roman Empire to the ground. Sorry? Oh, right, my mistake. Odoacer never burned Rome or sacked it. In fact, Roman soldiers, fed up with their current boss, elected him as their leader. He took the throne from Romulus, who was really just a puppet emperor on behalf of his dad, Orestes, who was pulling the strings after ousting and exiling the previous emperor. Oh, and although Odoacer was a Germanic warlord and did have Orestes killed, he let Romulus go, because he was just a young boy, and he was allowed to go and live with his relatives in southern Italy. Sounds lovely. And he was given a pension? Wow. No, genuinely, he got a pension. And we never really hear about him again, but he seems to have lived out the rest of his life in relative peace. What a lucky lad. Anyways, after seizing power, Odoacer became the first king of Italy. The people quite liked him, just as you should like this video. Following his rise to power, he stayed out of trouble just enough that the Eastern Empire wouldn't bother him. The empire was once again a monarchy. The last Roman emperor had left his seat of power. Except he technically wasn't the last Roman emperor. Remember the Eastern Empire at Constantinople? That was still going strong. Constantinople never recognized Odoacer's Rome as part of the Roman Empire, even though it was Rome. It's all a little confusing. Anyway, Constantinople would continue for almost 1,000 more years. By medieval times, this leg of the Roman Empire had become known as the Byzantine Empire. In April 1453, Sultan Mehmed II, an Ottoman Turk, laid siege to Constantinople and bombarded its walls with cannons and heavy artillery. Emperor Constantine XI watched on from inside the walls. He would be the last Roman emperor, and he probably knew it. His most clever defensive contraption, a heavy chain spread across the Golden Horn waterway, had been defeated, not through military bombardment, mind you. When Mehmed saw that his ships couldn't sail through, he paused for a moment, fought, and then beached them at night. His men then used oiled logs to move the fleet across land, bypassing the chain and its fortifications. The citizens of Constantinople awoke to see the enemy in their impenetrable waterway, and lots of them thought, uh-oh. It was one of the cleverest moves in all wars of all time, so kudos to you, Mehmed. In the siege of Constantinople, the Turks employed one of the most enormous cannons in history. A Hungarian named Urban put together a monster cannon named the Basilic. It was 27 feet long, with 30-inch diameter barrel, capable of firing a stone ball weighing over half a ton at a distance of over a mile. That's like shooting a grand piano across the Golden Gate Strait. It was an imposing machine. Well, apart from that aiming it was no more than guesswork and luck, loading it was so labor-intensive that you could only fire it 7 times per day, and the forces required were so massive that it eventually blew itself apart, killing and wounding all the Turks using it. But oh well, what can you do? Firing continued until both sides were exhausted. On May 29th, the Sultan launched an all-out assault, blowing a massive hole in Constantinople's wall. His troops swarmed in, finally overpowering the defenders and sacking the city. Romantically, Emperor Constantine was last seen fighting with his men at one of the gates. Literally, because romantic, if you trace it back far enough, only means Roman. So, the real reason the Roman Empire fell? Well, that depends on which half you're talking about. Rome itself, the Western Empire, fell because, well, it ran out of steam. The citizens had enough, the Senate had had enough, and the troops had had enough. Basically, everyone just hated Rome. But Constantinople, the Roman Empire's continuing beacon long after its sister city's fall, was more complex. Constantinople and its emperors had withstood Ottoman attacks many times before 1453. In fact, they'd tried at least 9 times over the preceding centuries, and failed, obviously, until this time, when Mehmed was successful. And what was the difference? Well, it's hard to say, but the Eastern Empire had made itself so isolated from the rest of Europe, particularly the Latin Church in Rome, that nobody really liked them, and nobody came to help. On top of that, the Byzantine Empire wasn't really relevant on the world stage anymore, and its population had shrunk from hundreds of thousands to 50,000s tops. And so, the Roman Empire finally fell. The Ottoman Turks seized control of Constantinople, ushering in a new age. Quite literally, after Constantinople's fall, many Greeks migrated to Italy. As a result, the Middle Ages ended, and the Renaissance began. So if there's any lessons to be learned here, it's that the Roman Empire fell because everybody decided they hated it and wanted all of its money. Anyways, bye.